Hey everyone, and welcome to AYP Live, the series of live shows across the Aberdeen Young Professionals socials, where we spotlight the next generation of talent shaping the future of our region and industries, and highlight those that have been there and got the t-shirt. I'm your host, Ross Jolly, and tonight we're gearing up for something special, because tomorrow, August the 1st, for those of you not watching along live, the Aberdeen 30 under 30 2025 list officially launches. This isn't just a vanity list, it's about recognising the energy, innovation and impact of young professionals in Aberdeen and the Shire. So those are the ones that are doing big things before they even hit the age of 30. And who better to speak to than two of our past winners from the 2023 list. First, I'm joined by Johnny Brooks, Manager Director of Studio 10, a bold creative agency that's helping brands cut through the noise with strong identity and strategy. And alongside him tonight is Taylor Eridge, who is the Business Development Lead of Decommissioning at James Fisher Decommissioning. So Taylor's a rising voice in the energy sector, leading commercial efforts in one of the most complex and future-facing parts of the industry. So we're going to dive into what it meant to be selected, what's changed since, and what advice they'd give to anyone climbing the ladder in their 20s. So that's enough from me. Let's get into it, and let's welcome Johnny and Taylor onto the show. You just bear with me, I'll get them on now. Hello guys, how are we?
Hi Ross.
Good, how are you?
Now, we must admit, we've just been having a little bit of a laugh backstage as well, because Taylor's got a bit of a cough and Johnny's got a bit of a sniffle. So we'll try our best tonight and see how we get on. So let's kick off with the moment itself. And let's go back like 2 years. So where were you when you found out that you made the list? And what was your initial reaction? We'll start off with yourself, Johnny.
Do you know, I think I was in the office, which is probably the most like generic, obvious answer, but it was one of those where I found out whilst I was with people, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was the first time you guys had done the 30 under 30. Is that right? Yeah. So it was kind of a new thing, and people were a bit surprised or shocked by it, especially because I was on it, because I don't know how that was earned. But it was one of those where people were kind of like, oh, this is cool, what's this? And for me, I actually thought it was a wind-up at first until I realised it was real, and then I was really touched by it.
Brilliant. What about yourself, Taylor?
Yeah, I've got to be honest, I think I was in the office as well. Boring we are. I thought about making up something a bit more exotic than that, but I'll stick with the truth. So yeah, no, I was in the office with my colleagues at the time, and to be honest, we just wondered where it had come from, because none of them had put me forward for it. So we were thinking, This is interesting. I'm curious. Who's my secret sponsor?
And what was, obviously both of you were saying that you were in the office. What was the response like from, say, your colleagues, clients, or even people in your own network? Did it surprise you? I mean, if I could start with yourself, Johnny, again.
Yeah, I would say I think some of them were surprised too, to be honest. Not, in a nasty way, more just like because it was the first time it had happened. I don't think people had associated 30 under 30 with Aberdeen before. At least speaking personally, maybe the Forbes list was the one I would have thought of if someone had said that, which is not a bad thing. But, that's I think where people were starting to realise there was one for Aberdeen. And actually the immediate reaction after that was, how can I get it next time? And so I think that's why tonight's conversation will be quite interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what about yourself, Taylor?
Yeah, I think it was a really good response from all my colleagues here, and I couldn't have asked for a better team around me. They were all so supportive and kind of wanted to come along and support me at the awards night and whatnot. I think it was just myself that went, but yeah, it was a really good response, and clients as well. I couldn't believe how far it kind of stretched, particularly, through social media. Once I'd posted that out, it was like floods of messages congratulating, and it was ace.
So obviously take yourself back again 2 years. Did you find that the recognition on this list came at a time maybe where you needed like an extra boost, or did it shift how you saw your own career progression as well?
Yeah, I think it definitely. At the time I had kind of recently started at James Fisher, so I'd come from a business development coordinator at Texo and moved up into a business development manager role. Mm-hmm. And at that point I was probably feeling a little bit of imposter syndrome and thinking, oh, can I really do this? So to have that kind of back an anonymous person at the time. Obviously, I did find out later it was my AYP mentor, which was brilliant. But yeah, certainly it was a really good time for me to have received the award, because it pushed me on to think, oh well, I'm being recognised.
That was a nice little plug there. Thanks, Taylor. So for those who don't know, the AYP also run their mentorship scheme. Get in touch with Bethany as well. Maybe she'll hook you up with a mentor. How about yourself, Johnny?
Yeah, I think to Taylor's point, for me, young people and especially young women are imposter syndrome's almost like the default state for so many of us. Not that I'm a woman, but as a young person, and I think we come up against it in industries that are male dominated, but also a creative space like the one we work in.
Yeah,
it's one of those jobs, isn't it, where people don't always know the value of it. If you own a camera, it's, oh yeah, can you come and take pictures, rather than can I hire you? Even family members of mine often make the mistake of thinking it's a hobby rather than a job, and when they see what we go on to do, it's like, oh, so I think we're in a permanent state of being underestimated, which is, it is what it is, and you can actually use it to your advantage sometimes. But this was one of the first times, I think, where that recognition was there, and people started to kind of go, oh hey, there's some really talented young people in this city, because often a lot of the attention goes to some of the more senior people in organizations.
Yeah, and that leads on to my next question. I was really going to ask as well, Johnny, brilliantly, because I remember when I spoke to the committee that was at the time a couple of years back, when I mentioned let's get a 30 under 30 list for the city, because part of the reason I set up AYP was to recognise the talent that we have got in the city and the Shire. And I was very keen to make sure that the under 30 didn't recognise it was more than job titles. It was about the contribution people were making, the entrepreneurs that are up and coming. So what do you think? I know it's probably difficult for yourself, Taylor, because you weren't sure who your nomination came from at the start, but what do you think that made your nomination stand out? And Taylor, if I could start with yourself.
So I think it was mainly kind of to do with the initiatives that I had been involved in with the Girls in Energy. So big advocate for bringing younger generations into the energy industry, and particularly young girls as well, and trying to push career paths and show that there is a viable career in that area. So I think it's kind of the work that I've done with that. So I've held quite a few events here at James Fisher, hosting academy age girls across, so they can come and see what it's like in the workshop, do some activities, kind of energy based activities. So I think that's maybe what stood out a little bit for myself.
Excellent. What about yourself, Johnny?
That's an interesting one, because I think by virtue of what we do, sometimes our work is or can be seen as very superficial. A lot of the time it's, clout chasing, it's having the biggest name on your podcast or working with the most famous person. And I like that because I'm a sado that collects autographs and memorabilia and stuff like that. But, what it does run you into the risk of is your work is often seen as a bit superficial and a bit vapid, and actually people maybe don't realize how much there is behind that, especially running a business. And I think my application and my nomination was largely based around some of that stuff, behind the curtain, rather than the kind of glitzy, shiny things. And I think with everyone I speak to, including Taylor and yourself, it's always more interesting to find out, like, what do you do that your clients don't see, or what's not in the PR article, what's, the challenge you overcame to get there, and I think that's something I noticed with a lot of the 30 under 30 entrants.
Yeah. And I mean, you also got an opportunity to meet the other 28 people that were on the list as well at the winners event. Do you think that the list has helped build more visibility for young professionals in Aberdeen, Johnny? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's a short answer, but yes, I think from even people coming up and mentioning it to me the first time we've met, people asking questions about how they can get onto it. I think, like, naturally, anything that creates a bit of a trend or engagement is always quite easy to see. And as soon as you've got a pattern where people are asking you, how can I get on that? How does this work? I was actually joking with Katie the other day about how I think she'd sent her dad a message, saying, one day I want to be on the 30 under 30 list. And fast forward, she's now on the committee of judges and helping decide who's on it. So she's skipped a step somewhere in there. But anything that drives that kind of excitement is always a good thing, and it's definitely been visible.
Brilliant. What about yourself, Taylor?
Yeah, no, it's definitely it's building the visibility. I mean, AYP's obviously given a platform to young people, and shouting about the successes and what everyone is up to, because I feel it's not necessarily always done by companies themselves. I mean, certain companies are amazing at it. Some companies don't shout so much. So it's really good that there's a platform kind of designated to support young professionals across Aberdeen. And the 30 under 30 is, it's a nice achievement to have had, and to kind of, I guess, build the visibility even further.
So let's have a look now. What's kind of really changed for you both since 2023? I'll start with yourself, Johnny. Since you were named on the 23 list, Studio 10's gone from strength to strength. How's your own leadership evolved, especially as a young managing director?
That's a really good question, and I don't honestly know the answer, because it's been such a whirlwind, to tell you the truth. I think as a business, we went from really a startup in every sense of the word to having a lot of success fairly quickly, but it almost happened overnight, and it was kind of, I still couldn't tell you exactly why. I think enough of the stars aligned with things like 30 under 30, and you'd get one really visible client that suddenly snowballed into 10 more, and so a lot of this has been a happy accident, to tell you the truth, and it's kind of why I don't even know if I have a leadership style yet. I think if anything, it's letting things unfold and spotting opportunities and then being carried by them. There's a phrase, say yes and then learn how to do it after, and this has been a lot of that, to tell you the truth. So I don't know if I had a game plan, but in hindsight, find the things that are working and kind of jump onto them. I don't know if I'd call myself a leader yet, so I don't know if I have a good answer for that, but if you can find the thing that you'd like to be a leader in and run headfirst at it, you might just get there.
Brilliant. And Taylor, decommissioning's probably not an area that always doesn't really get the spotlight. How's your role at James Fisher developed since being named on the list, and what wins are you most proud of?
I think, to be fair, with decommission, it's getting there. There's a huge growth potential in that area of the energy sector, starting to get spoken about a lot more. And through all of the various kind of OUK initiatives and whatnot, there's been a lot more happening. Myself, I guess the journey. I started off as business development manager here, and now taking on a more serious role as a BD lead for decommissioning. So I'm looking after more of a global remit there, supporting some of our other business development managers in other regions with the decommissioning specific projects. Brilliant.
Because I've got a little comment here from you, Johnny, from Louisa Stewart. She's known you for a little while now and can't believe how young he is, given how much he has achieved. Such an inspiring guy.
That's really nice. Thank you, Louisa. Your tenor is in the mail.
So I'll ask yourself, Johnny, do you think that being recognised on the 23 list has changed how others see you professionally or how you view your own career journey?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's largely been because a lot of the work that I've done in the past was recognised very much within our industry, so in the TV space, but it was quite funny. Like, I'd be well known in the TV industry, but then in Aberdeen, like, not know anyone or not know many people, and it was absolutely one of the first things where I really started to see people at networking events or just at different like working spaces where they'd come up and mention it, and that was really weird to me. It was kind of surreal. It's a good feeling. So I think if entries are opening up again soon, I think Taylor and I will be right in there with our applications again. But no, it is a weird thing because I think, as Taylor rightly said, young people are often less spotlit than others. And we are in a city that is still kind of learning how to celebrate and work with newer, younger people and ideas. So yeah, I think it's a good thing, and it's interesting to see where it can go.
And how about yourself, Taylor?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely raised my profile and cross industry as well, because really it's a kind of small knit community in the decom space. So to have been part of the 30 under 30, it's expanded that significantly. I mean, I'm getting people from all different kinds of industries to talk to, and new opportunities arising that I never even thought were a thing before. So it totally opens your eyes. But I think for my career, I've definitely got more of a vision for where I want to go going forward. And I've got some high hopes for the future. Maybe join Johnny and start a company.
Brilliant. Now, we've got a great question just came in, and it's aimed at yourself as well, Johnny. That was one that I was actually going to ask you, because I noticed you're not wearing it tonight, right?
Oh, no.
This is here from Mackenzie. Johnny, you've made the scarf a recognisable part of your personal brand. How did that decision come about, and what does it represent for you?
Okay, so at first, I thought this was a wind-up, right? But there is actually a logic to this. So for anyone that doesn't know, and I've totally ruined this by not wearing it tonight, but it is too warm for that. I often go around wearing a scarf, and it's kind of recognizable, and people will say, oh, there's your scarf, you got your scarf on. Now, that sounds ridiculous, and it might well be ridiculous, but the logic behind it was actually inspired by, there's this conspiracy theory that there's a certain type of personal brand you can build by having a couple of key things. So one of them is a color, one of them is a hairstyle, and the other is a name. And if you look at a lot of modern pop singers today, let's say Billie Eilish and the kind of lime green color that she uses a lot, Olivia Rodrigo with purple, I think, Taylor Swift, very often there's a real use of color that's associated with them. And if you can pick a thing, it could be something daft, like in my case, a scarf. If you consistently are seen with that, it becomes recognizable. The goal is that thing then reminds people of you, and you kind of take ownership of that thing. Pop stars and some of the biggest businesses in the world, I mean, McDonald's have almost done it with whistling and the color yellow. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just a firm believer that if you can find some kind of thing that's cool and personal to you and bring it into your personal brand, repeat it, you'd be amazed. Like, there was a time when there was a picture taken when we were doing a podcast, like a behind the scenes one, and I'm not even in the picture, but my belly and my scarf were, and thankfully it wasn't the belly that gave it away, I hope. But someone commented, like, is that you? And I was just like, wow, that's kind of a bit crazy. But I really encourage people, if you've got this leather jacket that you love wearing, or a certain thing you do with your hair, like, lean into that and kind of make it part of your persona, because personal brand is a huge amount of it these days.
Absolutely. And here was me just thinking that you were looking for a sponsorship deal, Johnny.
Yeah, I'll take it if Burberry are watching.
Taylor, if I can ask you, has the list opened any new doors for you, whether it's networking, collaborations, or even internal opportunities where you're working at the moment?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, beyond that, I guess there was quite a few of the winners that I kept in touch with and I've made good friends with, and some people in the same industry, some people out with, but from a collaboration perspective, made some good connections within the group of 30 under 30 winners, and continue that. I mean, it's 2 years down the line and I'm still close, kind of speaking with them regularly, so certainly, yeah.
Right. And I mean, Johnny, has there been any moments since you were on the list where you've set yourself, look, I wouldn't have had the confidence to do this 2 years ago?
Probably almost every day. And I think that's the honest answer. Like, Taylor really hit the nail on the head when she said imposter syndrome. There's, in our line of work, you're experiencing that all the time. And when you're creating a thing like a song or a picture or an interview, it is so like you're giving a piece of yourself away. It's kind of not like a car part, and I'm not insulting mechanics, but it's not a technical thing. You're really putting a piece of yourself into it, and as part of that, anytime there's a failure or a criticism, you have to take it constructively, but it always hurts a little bit, and because of that, you never quite feel like you're amazing at what you do because you're always improving and changing. So for me to be recognized was something that just quietens down those voices in your head a little bit that say like, oh, you're rubbish, like you shouldn't even be doing this, why are you doing this? And part of it, like, I'll still hear my dad when when I started this, he'd be like, fits a podcast anyway, you know, like he just doesn't get it. Even now he's sitting watching the podcast, he's like, when are you getting this person on? Like total change. But that kind of niggling doubt never quite leaves you. I don't know if you feel the same, Taylor, but there's kind of always, you're always thinking like, how can I be better, you know?
Yeah. It's like constantly trying to evolve to be almost, it's a perfectionist thing, Johnny, it's fine. But no, I can 100% say the same. I mean, I would have been a lot more within myself a couple of years ago than what I am now. And you kind of just need to find your voice and fake it till you make it. And that's genuinely what we'll live by.
And that kind of, well, obviously still on the early days here. We've got a great question in from Brenda here saying, well done, Johnny and Taylor. I've got a question for Johnny. What decision or mindset shift do you think made the biggest difference early on in your journey?
Oh man, that's a big one. The honest answer is a negative one, but I think it's, you know, the professional world and like LinkedIn are full of people that have these amazing glitzy stories about like how early they wake up and how many ice baths they take a day and stuff. But the honest answer is I started my first business a few years before Studio 10, right around COVID time, just before it. And my dad kindly gave me his pension as an investment, and it was, or what was left of it, was like £12,000. And my dad is a disabled guy who, you know, worked pretty much to the bone and like broke his back for me. And the business completely failed. It was pretty much a disaster. We made all the wrong decisions with signing long leases for properties and buying all this stuff that we didn't yet know we could sell and had a use for. And so very quickly lost all of that. And it was so embarrassing, you know, lots of shame and guilt. And the honest answer is that was the thing, watching him work so hard to facilitate me having a chance at something. There's no better motivator, I guess, than feeling absolutely awful and not willing to kind of let things end there. I think had it been my own money or, you know, free money in some way, it would have been like, oh, business maybe isn't for me. But because it was his, the sort of pain of that was too much to just let that be a loss. So it became a bit of a fire in the belly, you know, and a lot of this has been motivated by absolute fear of repeating that. And that's, I think, where Taylor hit the nail on the head with the perfectionist thing. There is absolutely, on one hand, perfectionism, and then on the other, crippling anxiety that it's not good enough all the time. Even when it's kind of from an outside point of view, people think it's really impressive. Internally, you're like every night going to bed thinking like, oh, what if this is rubbish? You know, and I don't know if that's a universal thing, but I have that all the time.
Confirmed, universal.
Yeah. And that leads on perfectly what I was going to speak to you both about next, and we're talking about like real life. I was to ask yourself, Taylor, what's the kind of most misunderstood part about what you do?
Typically, people assume I go for coffees and go to conferences every day. And that it's just like, it's fun, and we go for dinners, and yeah, there's a lot more to it. Sadly, yeah, that's what I signed up for too, but it didn't turn out that way. So there's a lot of revenue analysis and forecasting, and a lot of pressure, like numbers that are on your head. And I mean, I ended up being a team of one in the BD team here at Fisher for like 2 years. We've recruited now, and we've built on the team, but during that period of time, it was all on me for the UK and Europe revenue, and sitting there as like 24, 25-year-old thinking, oh my God, how am I going to do this? How am I going to hit these figures? So yeah, it's a lot of kind of misconception that it's just a fun role. I mean, sales and BD, it's not, you don't need to be technical, but I've always felt that I have to kind of be that technical person in a room, because if I don't know my stuff, people overlook me. And particularly, one, being young, two, being a young girl, it's kind of easy to ignore that person in the room and think, no, you don't know what you're talking about. So I'm kind of overcompensated trying to learn the technicals.
I'm still learning it as well, Taylor. Yeah. I'm 45, so I'm still learning it, so don't worry about it.
Every day's a school day.
How about yourself, Johnny?
What was the question again?
Well, there you go. You should be paying attention.
Oh, no, just listen to what Taylor was saying.
Yeah, see. Now, what I was just asking, what's the most misunderstood part about what you do? I think you kind of covered it a little bit.
Yeah, it's probably the superficiality of it, you know, and it's not a bad assumption that people make, because if your podcast or your content online is being watched by 10 people rather than 10 million, there is a massive difference in the business behind that. So it's not a silly observation, but most successful people in the content space are not successful because they want to be seen by loads of people. I mean, I'll use Jake Paul as the example, and love or hate him, as a lot of people do and will. He's not where he is because he loves being watched. I mean, it might be a byproduct of it, but there are smart business people, really, even a lot of young women now are getting, understandably, massive views, massive revenue potential now, because finally they're in control of their own platform. And without kind of making this a big debate, they're not able to be squashed and suppressed by other demographics as much as they once were, you know, to Taylor's point. And now you are your own publisher, and that's a really cool thing. And I think specifically with a lot of women that we work with, there's an assumption that they're doing content or influencing because they love attention or because they love taking pictures of themselves, these kind of stupid assumptions. But actually, a lot of them, if not all of them, are really smart business people who should not be underestimated because they're killing it.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, do either of you feel pressure to have it all figured out by a certain age? And can I ask you both how you deal with that? Because I mean, the reason I ask that too is because I've still got two young daughters. Well, one's about a year away from being a teenager, so she barely speaks to me anyway. But the young one's asking a lot of questions now. Going, Dad, you must know the answers. You must that. And I'm going, well, no, you're still learning. But it'd be interesting to see what both of you think.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I feel like I'm 40, if I'm honest. It comes. I mean, the job itself comes with a lot of responsibility, and the success of the business is reliant on how many jobs that we can complete successfully and secure. So you play a big role in that, and with that, you're thinking, like, is this forever? Like, am I going to be able to withstand, like, to continue, like, that kind of either like level of stress? I mean, obviously it comes in peaks and troughs, but it's definitely a funny feeling of, by the age of like 25, you need to be in that career, you need to be climbing the ladder at X speed, and it's just continuously kind of getting more and more pressure, I guess, from like everybody wants to move up quickly now. I think is how it is, and like everybody here anyway that's kind of a little bit older and has been in their career longer, they always say, oh, we never kind of, we had to wait for that or whatever. But now it seems, I don't know if it's the requirement that the industries now have to bring more young people in and to try and get more people moving through the ranks, but it seems to be moving and people are progressing a lot faster than in previous years.
So Johnny, have you figured it out?
Absolutely not. If anything, I would go as far as to say, the more I do things that are perceived as successful, the more I realize how much I don't know. And I think there's a strength in curiosity. If you kind of run into things like, I want to learn how to do that, or I want to know. And Taylor absolutely summed this up perfectly. I love personally working with people who are underdogs, that have a bit of a point to prove, people that were called stupid when they were younger, people that were, ignored, because 9 times out of 10, those are the people that they want to know more rather than want to tell you what they know. And I always come back to this thing, like, if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're probably doing it wrong, So surround yourself with other really strong people. Like, for example, Brenda, who put the question in before, Jason, for example, those are other young people and young women, or one of them, who I know from conversations feel like they have to fight harder to be seen the same as other people. And those are the people I choose to work with, because you'll always, get a bit more effort and less ego. Although, I mean, ego's not a bad thing. I'm sure I've got plenty of it, but there's something there to back it up. There's a hunger behind it.
And I think you both kind of touched on this as well for my next couple of questions I was wanting to ask you. But the first one, and I'll start with yourself, Taylor, is how do you manage being taken seriously in rooms where you might be the youngest?
Yeah, I mean, I've obviously had a few scenarios where people assume you're the apprentice or the intern. Um, it's gonna come. Like, I mean, I don't look very old. I mean, I probably look 13 anyways, but um, like I said, I do try and overcompensate with like learning the technical knowledge, but I always feel like a pressure to bring something to the room and add value. So it's almost not a, like a fight to get your voice heard, but
Mhm.
I'll, I lead the presentations and that kind of thing. So very quickly they'll, see that I do have value to add in that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, and how about yourself, Johnny? Obviously, you're probably going up against big media companies too, and you're just a young lad from Aberdeen. How do you cope with like going into likes of when you're bidding or tendering for work? How do you get yourself taken seriously against some of these big guys?
Well, on one hand, things like the 30 under 30 list and they're like professional recognition really helps. And I'm not just saying that because I'm here. That's genuinely true. I think on the other hand, a lot of people are really worried about what they can say they are and their title. I often get mistaken for a junior, a producer, a videographer, whatever, and I almost never correct the person. And some people would say that's absolutely wrong. You need people to know that it's your business or whatever. But I often use it as an opportunity to almost like secret shop my own customers. So, I can pass on feedback to management. What would you like them to do differently? And it kind of gives you a unique advantage to get under people's skin or into rooms where, an example, and this is mental, we were filming this BBC show, Debate Night, and use your youth or the reason people underestimate you to your advantage. So I saw the presenter of the show, whose name I can't remember, he'd walked away into some green room, and I pretended to have no idea where I was, be lost, bump into him by walking into the green room, and then ask if he needed anything and look after him. And over the course of this, half a day shooting, I was like, oh, can I get you that? Any chance I can see this? And he kind of took me under his wing a little bit. And before you know it, we're in the production van and seeing all this stuff. And at that stage, I was just an unpaid runner, But sometimes because you're young, you get away with things that if we were 40 or 50, you'd be like, you should know better. So you can use that to your advantage, I think.
Yeah.
As for people belittling you or just seeing you as lesser, I just think they're not your people. More and more we're seeing really amazing brands built by young people, and if you're in the right space, like, age is completely irrelevant.
Yeah, I think you're right, Johnny. You're spot on. Like, it's almost a power as well, because I mean, certainly with BD, I almost use it to kind of learn from people. So I'll message someone and say, I know you're working on this. Is there any chance I could pick your brains and see what's happening with that? So it's almost a door opener at the same time, as long as you're kind of comfortable enough to be, humble enough to go in and do that, because there's no point in trying to be something you're not, and you need to be open to learning every day. It doesn't even matter how old or young you are.
No, 100%. And I mean, you've both mentioned imposter syndrome. That was kind of quite heavy in the opening start of the interview here. So have either of you really kind of struggled with it? And if so, what's helped you overcome it? We'll start with yourself, Johnny.
I don't think I have overcome it, to tell you the truth. If anything, the worse it gets, the more I try and do to run away from it. It's like a race between me and self-doubt, and it's a bit of a superpower, even though it's an exhausting one, because nothing will ever be enough, so I'll keep pushing. I would like to sleep more and sort of occasionally think, yeah, I've done all right, and I can't. So I'm probably the wrong person to ask that question. I don't have a very healthy relationship with that. But I think if there's something I've seen work in other people, it's positive feedback, validation, trial and error, not punishing failure, but like leading by example. And when people get things right, especially minorities, young people, women, people that often don't hear it enough, like, let them know and praise people loudly and praise people visibly. So it's all well and good to say privately, one-to-one, you did a really good job. But then when you go into your group meeting with the rest of the company, are you taking credit for that instead of giving it to the person that actually did it? Because these things have a big difference on someone's imposter syndrome, I think.
Yeah. And what about yourself, Taylor? Do you find yourself still struggling from it periodically, and how do you kind of overcome it?
Yeah, I mean, from time to time, but I think what I've kind of done is the whole fake it till you make it thing. Like, I do genuinely think that that works. Once you kind of, try and embody what you want to be, you eventually do become that. So, I mean, like I said, a couple of years ago, wouldn't be able to, speak my opinion in a room, and now I'm happy to. I'll speak to anyone. I'll speak to a director. I don't care who's what. It's just about kind of finding that confidence, and maybe it's not in yourself, but I take work completely separately from personal life. I mean, I'm probably not as confident in my personal life as I am at work. It's a completely different environment, so I almost switch into a different personality, and you just need to kind of be what you want to be. I know that sounds daft, but like, fake it till you make it is what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's it. No, that's it. Because I mean, obviously, I was wanting to pick up on a point you made there as well, Johnny, about the word failure. What's your relationship with failure? Do you see it as a red flag, or do you see it as part of the process?
No, I think, I can't remember who it was I was having this conversation with the other day, actually. I think it might have been Jason, who I can see in the comments. If it's not, then sorry, Jason. But, fail quickly and fail often, and being too scared to fail, especially in my experience, failure was the thing that set up success. It's like, failure is just learning unless you keep repeating it or let that be the end of the story, and most things I've tried, and I mean, I always think about this with like famous musicians, like Slash was not good when he first picked up the guitar, and like, I mean, Billie Eilish might have been a good singer, because to be fair, she's pretty good, but like, no one starts off as the finished product, and failure is one of the fastest ways to get there. It's a little bit of an arrogant kind of douchey phrase, but in Silicon Valley they always say like, move fast and break things, and I do like to live that way, not personally but in business, where try things, don't be afraid to get it wrong, put something on, and if no one turns up, adapt it,
Yep.
But the worst thing you can do is not do it.
No.
Yeah.
Great advice. And what about yourself, Taylor? I mean, what's your kind of relationship with failure?
I mean, I think everyone fails at some point, and it's how you respond that's what matters. I mean, I have failures every day, and I think it's part of a learning curve. So, I think once you've done something that's not worked, it's a lessons learned. You're gonna change that for the next time. It's probably the big failures that hit you the hardest that you're actually gonna make the change with. And obviously, if you do the same kind of little failure a couple of times, then you're going to make the change again. So there's kind of positivity in failing, and everybody does it.
Well, now I always think you learn more from probably your failures than you do your successes, because it only makes you a better professional and better person, I think, too. I'll dig into the kind of questions we're getting from online. And again, for viewers watching us live, please feel free to pipe in. We've got a question here for you, kind of both from Jason here. Initially saying, well, Johnny, you've become well known for working with famous brands and people. With Aberdeen recently upping its game with welcoming famous names, who are your top 3 dream guests? And we'll ask you as well, Taylor, but we'll give you a bit more time to think about it than Johnny, since it's kind of aimed at him initially.
So I'm quite sad. I sit thinking about these things and mapping them out all the time. My idea of fun is asking people in a group chat to design their own festival, and you've got to pick 3 bands, and only 3 of all time. So I have an answer for this because I'm sad. Definitely Lewis Capaldi. I think right now he's everything I'm like in a person, but also everything I think especially young people could learn a lot from. Even prior to his Tourette's diagnosis, he was very much the embodiment of being humble, being true to yourself, not letting the success change you. Sadly, he also embodies self-doubt and imposter syndrome quite a lot. But there's just something about that guy, that it draws people in, and you can see it. And I think even if he wasn't singing, he'd have a very successful career in comedy or in something, because he brings that to people. Other than Lewis Capaldi, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that yet. A couple of famous boxers I think would be really cool to bring to Aberdeen and put something on. And obviously, like what the Chamber have done with the Masterclass Festival is awesome. I think Louis Theroux and Stephen Bartlett, either of them would have been up there, but they got to it first. So fair play to them. That was really cool. Yeah, I think people like that.
Mm-hmm. And what about yourself, Taylor? You've had a lot of time to think about it now. So
No, this is one on the spot. Thanks for that, Jason. So I did go with Stephen Bartlett because I saw him at one of the master classes. Absolutely brilliant. So good. Another one, bit weird one, but I like him. Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
He's I don't know, like he's just got something about him. He's wisdom, that guy. And then totally random one, Fisher, the DJ, because he's a ball of energy, and how fun would that be?
You know what? I'm actually really pleased that I know everyone that you've kind of mentioned, both of you. I don't feel such an old man now.
I don't know who Fisher is.
You don't know Fisher? Oh, DJ, you need to get on it.
Gordon Ramsay would be another one. Like that's, I think, an evening. And Jason, if you guys do this, I'll be raging. But like an evening with Gordon Ramsay is a masterclass. He understands personal brand really well. And I was looking at the other day some of the TV shows he's got in America. It's like a list the length of your house. You know, he has literally got a monopoly on like food television, and I think that guy's a genius. And he's nothing like the sort of persona that's out there.
And we've got another really good question came in because obviously you're both in completely different industries. From Darren here, do you feel that there were any specific industries that acknowledged your nomination, or was it more general? Start with yourself, Johnny.
I think it was more general. And I think that was a credit really to you guys and also to the people that applied, because if you look at that list, it wasn't dominated with one sector or one space in terms of who was on there. So I think it was very general and actually quite surprising. Some people that I thought wouldn't even know about it were congratulating or mentioning it or asking questions. And so that was really cool. As far as my industry goes, I don't think they've even noticed, because they're like, unless you've got 5 Emmys or BAFTAs, they don't care. But you know, that's not always what we're looking for. And to get that local recognition by people you actually see and work with, for me, that's actually cooler. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you there, Johnny. It's definitely kind of a wider recognition than just like the decom space, for instance. It's been, I mean, it was across, you know, everything, like construction, like, you know, every kind of different area that you could think of, leisure, like, you know, everywhere. So it was really good that had spread so wide, and it kind of broadened your horizons yourself as well, because you're not just kind of, you know, one day maybe we want to go into something else. Maybe we want to go on a hotel. So it's good.
No, I mean, we were very pleased with the feedback that we got, and I think, you know, when we're judging it, we've got a mixed judging panel as well. So we're not all from one sector, so that we're trying to avoid all these you know, unconscious bias and things like that. So because we obviously know people in our own sectors and things like that, but we're doing it purely based on the information that's provided, whether you nominate yourself or whether you have somebody nominating you for your achievements as well. So I mean, one bits of the feedback that I will provide people that are watching who are maybe considering putting a nomination in from tomorrow is, you know, don't be shy. Just, you know, sell your achievements and, you know, tell us your story is the best thing, because we want to know who you are, what you've achieved, and maybe what your plans are for the future too. And that kind of takes us to the next section I want to speak to you about, is now looking ahead. So for those that are hoping to make the list, obviously applications open tomorrow, what's your advice for standing out? I mean, I've obviously given a little hint there myself from being one of the judges, but especially if they're in less visible roles, you want to call it that. Well, can maybe start yourself, Taylor? What would be your kind of advice?
Yeah, I mean, doing whatever you can, I suppose, to help other people in the industry as well is probably a key thing to get involved in. I mean, certainly for myself, I think the thing that stood out was, again, the Girls in Energy support. So if you can, you know, put others first and try and do whatever you can to support other people up in their journey, help other people climb the ladder.
Yeah, because I mean, that's great bit of advice too, because I mean, that's another thing I forgot to add there, is that we're obviously looking for people that are in the volunteering sector. You know, so if you're an individual that you're volunteering for groups like AYP, for example, if you're making headway with that and you're making an impact in the local community, we're really interested to hear from you as well. But I mean, what about yourself, Johnny? What kind of advice would you give a potential candidate?
I don't know if this will work, but it's something that's worked for me. Is, and you've possibly noticed this if you've been watching this so far, I often, to a fault, don't just answer a question. I tell stories. It's just how I am, and often drives people absolutely mental. Meetings are never short, but it is that ability to not just tell me what you did, but make me, walk me through it with you. And it could be the smallest, least visible thing in the business, but if you can tell me it as a short story and actually walk me through the impact of something you did, or even something you overcame, it could be anything. But if you actually take the time to outline that rather than just hit me with your CV, I think the same when it comes to recruiting and employment. I'm always more interested in who someone is and what they've experienced rather than just what their kind of qualifications are. And I think that was something I went into my application with, and it paid off. So I would hope it would for other people too.
So I mean, like, what do you think is like really one underrated skill or quality that young professionals should focus on building now? If I can start yourself, Taylor, what do you think? There's one. Well, give me like one example of an underrated skill or quality you think that YPs should be focusing on.
Speaking to people, just being bold and confident enough to enter a conversation with a stranger. I mean, I know that's kind of like part of my job. It's not part of every job. I mean, if you're an engineer, you don't typically have to go out your way to go and speak to people, but it will be a door opener for you in more ways than one. I mean, you can, if you can go and speak to someone, you don't know who you're speaking to and who they might be in, not right now, but in 5 years' time.
Yeah.
And it can open doors for you way beyond what you think. So the opportunities that can come from, just having the kind of confidence to go up and talk to someone.
100%. And what about yourself, Johnny?
I think this is a cheap way to use my last answer for this one, but honestly, storytelling is something that naturally has been a part of what we've done for a long time. And I realized that a person's ability to tell a story and hook people in almost always directly correlates with their success, their ability to get a promotion, their ability to sell, their ability to, as Taylor said, walk into a room and persuade someone to take a chance on them. Bob Keeler does great workshops, or certainly used to do great workshops on storytelling. That totally piqued my interest. Jason, in the comments, still teaches me things about, how to use data to tell a story rather than just throw stats at someone. And honestly, I think that's an underrated skill. I mean, I love it because I'd always rather speak to people that you almost get lost in the conversation rather than why you're having that meeting. Not always. Sometimes it's not good for productivity, but it's good for everything else. So learn how to tell your own story and learn what your own story is. I sometimes think if a lot of people that wrote a CV instead sat and wrote out an application in the form of just their story, go and watch a film called, I think it's called 21. It's all about this illegal blackjack card group at one of the big schools in America. And for his interview, they're like, we need someone that really stands out to get this scholarship. Are you that person? And he gives them all of his academic stuff, and they're like, everyone that's applied has good qualifications. But he then tells this story about how he got into an illegal, blackjack ring. And, well, you can watch the film, I won't spoil it. But
Yeah, don't spoil it.
Yeah, that's a good example.
No, brilliant. I mean, this is something that I always like to ask people as well. If you could go back in time, right, and speak to yourself, say when you're 21, what would you say to yourself then, from obviously where you've learned now to where you are right this second? What would you say, Taylor?
Definitely stop worrying about what other people think. Like, do the LinkedIn post. That was one thing that I always kind of had a fear about in the beginning. I was like, I feel awkward. Like, I have to put like something up on LinkedIn. What are people going to think? Especially like young peers and stuff like that, because you do, like, everybody gets a bit of stick for doing that kind of stuff. But so what? At the end of the day, it's your career. It's not, it's not just a social media post for the sake of it. You're going out, you're putting yourself out there, and that's what's going to build your brand, your personal identity in the industry. And don't let anybody else dull down your successes and what you've achieved. So basically
You're on a
just
live event now. So you're scared doing posts, and now you're on a live event.
I know. Here we are.
So how about yourself, Johnny?
Yeah, I think it's probably one or two small but pivotal things that happened that I'd just go back and be like, that's the thing you should have just done instead of worried about all these other things. And the thing that it was, it'll be different for everyone, but for me it was sending an email, just one email, in the middle of lockdown to a woman off the TV, basically. A controversial woman who is accused of murder. And I sent her an email and basically asked if she would do an interview. And she was not doing any interviews at this time because her reputation was not very good, and there was all kinds of hate and death threats and everything. So the odds of her applying were virtually nil, or so I thought. And she replied to that email, gave me the interview, and it literally took my career from less than 100 people watching everything I did. And when I say less than 100, I mean often quite a lot less than 100, to like 1 million people watching that almost overnight. And it was one email. And
Brilliant.
I take no credit for that, but the thing I would suggest people do is, if there's a thing you want to ask or a thing you want to launch or tell someone or ask for, just do it. And the worst that can happen is someone says no, but like get it sent. Don't sit on it and in 5 years go, I wonder what would happen if I asked for investment in this idea or whatever it may be.
So Taylor, for other young women navigating technical or shall we say male-dominated sectors, what advice would you offer?
Firstly, don't let anyone make you feel like you're not adding value, because you are, and you've got your whole career ahead of you to make your voice known. But also, maybe like try joining one of the women in industry groups as well. I mean, myself, I'm part of the committee for the Women in Decommissioning initiative, so we like host events, etc. And it's just a nice community to have other women there. It's almost like a whole set of mentors and mentees as well, new people coming up through the industry, and it really builds kind of a nice, I don't want to say safe space, but that kind of feel. And when you go to these events that are predominantly men, you always find someone that you saw at a Women in Decommissioning event, for instance, and you've got someone there that you can go to, and it's definitely not a downfall to be a woman in industry. You need to keep pushing and make your voice heard, because ultimately there are going to be some setbacks and some people that maybe don't want to see you progress as much as you can do, but never kind of let that stop you in your tracks. And Johnny, like you said before, some people just aren't your people. So if you're in a company or a position that's not championing you, I think that's then it's not the place that you want to be. You want to be somewhere that's going to value you and push you forward.
I think, I can't remember where I read it, but it's also finding your tribe, isn't it? It's the like-minded people that you associate with and push you professionally without putting you down. Because I think, if you look at your friend circle, you don't keep yourself associated with people that keep pulling you down, putting you down. So it should be the same with your own career. You surround yourself with people that challenge you, but in a positive way, and keep pushing you up and help you realize your own potential. I mean, I've got the opposite problem, Taylor, in my house. I've got my wife and 2 girls, so trying to get my voice heard in my house is very difficult problem. But Johnny, I'll ask you a question. For young creatives, because obviously in your line of work, trying to move from doing the work to leading a business, what's the biggest mental shift that you think you need to make?
Honestly, I think it's personal brand, and Taylor is consistently saying the same thing, just in a different space. It's putting that post on LinkedIn that you might think is a bit cringy, or you might think other people are going to think is cringy. It's a leader is just a person that happens to sort of put things in place or make things happen. It doesn't matter what age you are. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. It is really, are you making something happen? And the way you talk to yourself is 50% of that. The other 50 is the way you tell other people they're allowed to talk to you. And if you put this kind of personal brand out there that you're not worthy, then you will not be viewed as a leader or a respected person in your space. And I hate that that's true, but I think that You know, you almost have to present yourself. This is a tacky phrase, but dress for the job you want, not the job you have. You know, and I say that kind of tongue in cheek because, I mean, you'll rarely see me in a shirt, normally in Crocs, but behave and present yourself for the way you want to be seen, not the way you think you are seen. Because most of our limiting beliefs are self. And you can change other people's minds, and also you don't have to care. You can prove them wrong. But yeah, make that post, put it out there, establish yourself as a thought leader, share your knowledge. In the creative space, a lot of what we do is assumed to be easy. People think I have a camera on my phone, I can take pictures, and they think that's all you're doing. No, there's a lot more to it, but let people see behind the curtain and tell those stories about how you actually made a really cool album or whatever it might be. But tell that story and be proud of it.
No, great piece of advice from both of you. Thanks very much. Now, we're coming just to the end of the interview, so I've put together just a few quick fire questions for you, so we'll rattle through them, and I'll aim these at both of you. Let's start with the first one. Your first job ever. Taylor, what was your first job ever?
Coaching gymnastics.
There we go. Johnny, read the same?
Creative writer at North Sound, the radio station.
Brilliant. And who do you think, between the two of you, that there's one person you would like to shout out and say in Aberdeen who is under 30 that we should be watching in 2025? Johnny, I'll start with you.
Oh, does it have to be one?
Well, if you've got a couple, go for it. But I haven't got time to do a big list, though. I know there's a lot of good people out there, but...
Mackenzie, who put a comment about my scarf earlier on, Mackenzie Lidello, doing a lot of things in the kind of third sector space with Sodexo. And Cameron Foreman, who, similar role to myself, like creative media. She's cool. She's killing it and did some really cool video content for like Brewdog and all sorts of cool brands. And yeah, I hope to see them on the list.
What about yourself, Taylor?
I'm going to have to go with our training and competency advisor, Millie Wilson, because she's absolutely smashing it here. She's doing so well, so young, and you would honestly think she's like an MD. She's brilliant.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, guys. Now, the last question I was just going to ask you as well. What's your go-to way to switch off after a high-pressure week? Now, keep it clean.
A cheese board night. I like making a cheese board. I've thought about making like a wee side hustle, just making cheese boards. So I might do that.
I thought you were going to say a cheeseburger, which definitely would be on my list. Music's a big one. The cheese and wine night at Neo Space, it always does the trick. And just being around creative people. You know, it's nice when you're in the kind of corporate world to just get out of that for a bit and be around people that are into other stuff.
Brilliant. Well, guys, what can I say? Thanks, so much for joining us tonight, and all the people that are viewing it live as well. I think you've both shown what it means to not just climb the ladder, but build new ones for others to follow. But thanks very much for taking the time tonight to speak to me and the AYP followers across our socials, and also sharing your story. Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
And also, thanks very much to you, our listeners. Don't forget that the 2025 Aberdeen 30 under 30 list is going to be dropping tomorrow to start putting in your applications. You can nominate yourself and get somebody to nominate you. So that'll be going live tomorrow morning, first thing. So keep an eye on LinkedIn, the AYP group websites, and I do believe the Press Journal will be helping us with a bit of promotion for that as well, for the big reveal, and all the details to how to nominate yourself or someone you know will be on the website. So whether you're just getting started, mid-climb, or even changing lanes, your 20s are the time to make some bold moves. So ask some better questions, like the guys were speaking about during the interview there, and get yourself noticed for the right reasons. I'll just put the usual caption on that we have to get in touch with us as well. If you'd like to kind of be featured on a future AYP Live, or you'd like us to cover a topic, please do get in touch. And we've got some cracking interviewees lined up for the next few AYP Lives. And if you want to get in touch, just get in touch with our email address here, info@aypgroup.co.uk. So this has been AYP Live, and as always, we'll see you next time. And my name's Ross, and thanks very much for joining us tonight. Thanks for tuning in to Aberdeen Young Professionals. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe for more events. Want to join us in person? Visit www.aypgroup.co.uk to find out what's next. See you there.